Well, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. This is Michael Berg with CRS, and welcome to our Reports Role Manager training application. This is going to be the new um, application for managing CRS users in a couple weeks. And that change dovetails with a project CRS is undertaking to migrate CRS to CRIS Portal. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get going. Right. And Kevin, just to double check, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, I'm excited for this change. Reports Role Manager. It's going to serve us well in the new space of CRS in Portal. So oops, lost my, there we go. Presentation facilitated by myself, Michael Berg with CRS. My colleague Godwin Iroko will hopefully be joining a little later on this call, but he's also been part of this lift to migrate folks and to socialize and educate on this new application. Some just housekeeping items, just ensuring microphones are muted. Q&As in the chat, feel free to use that ongoing, and then um, we'll have time for Q&A later on in the session as well, dedicated to answer if we haven't been able to answer those via the chat. This represents our last general training for this application. But of course, as we become more familiar and um, switch over to this application, we're here to answer any questions that arise. Um, so topics we're going to cover today, migration, as I mentioned, really the reason for this training on the new tool. So we'll chat about expectations in terms of migration and timelines. And then we'll get into the application, um, workflow, functionality, and then some Q&A. All right, so migration. CRS for quite a while has been separate from CRISP portal, and we really want to consolidate that access under the central banner of CRISP portal. So excited for what that will afford us. In future state, we'll be able to be integrated under single user ID access, CRISP portal IDs for accessing not just any other CRISP tools you might be utilizing, but CRS as well. So that'll be a helpful change in streamlining. For those on this call who are HIE admins or POCs, another future state benefit of migration is that consolidated governance or integration between HIE admin auditing workflows and the CRS POCs, and that'll become more apparent as we go forward in this training. But allowing the workflows that the HIE admins perform in that auditing workflow for that to have an impact and a connected effect with regards to CRS access. So excited about that. In terms of dates, effectively July 1st or June 30th is our go live for migration. CRS will, on this date, be um, moved to CRIS Portal. Those who have currently CRIS Portal accounts, there won't be much change. Effectively, you would sign in as normal to CRIS Portal, but you would see a new tile entitled Reports. This is CRS located on your CRIS Portal dashboard. If you currently are an active CRS user and you don't have a CRISP portal account, we will be, as part of migration, we'll be setting you up and you will be um, required to register your CRS portal account come the 30th. You'll get a confirmation email and set up your two-factor authentication, get yourself live and set up for CRISP. And then once you do that, you'll see that tile as well within your dashboard, and your prior CRS reports will have been migrated, and you should be able to navigate to CRS as you normally do. For those on this call or whomever might be a POC, also within your CRIS portal dashboard, you will see a separate tile, the reports role manager tile or application, and that is the application for managing CRS users and their access on behalf of your organizations. A call out I just want to share as part of that transition within our current platforms, our legacy or log once CRS application, we're going to be pausing POC's functionality to add or edit users' access. Access will not go away, access will be retained. But as part of our effort to ensure we've captured everybody and we're not missing anybody who's kind of added to the old platform within that 11th hour, wanted to ensure we have everybody, and I'm going to be pausing POC's ability to add folks within that window. We're in the wing, of course, if there's any questions during this 10 business day period, you have questions, we can work through those, but it's all with the effort to ensure we're streamlined for migration. And then come July 1, we'd be into the new platform. So it's really kind of a sunsetting of the old tool. Okay. Yep, ongoing training such as this one was our last pre-migration dedicated role manager training, but we'll have communications to come and materials available on our website. All right. In general, the general workflow for obtaining access to CRS via portal is just a two-step process. Firstly, facilitated by the HIE admins who would be setting up portal accounts for any users who don't have a portal account, and then to those users granting the service reports. Um, so overall, for those veteran HIE admins, not a big change, but just noting the requirement of a portal account for CRS and that new service reports. For the POCs, they would be adding and credentialing within Role Manager, Reports Role Manager, adding the users to the organizations, and then credentialing. So that also, in general, that workflow aligns with the current expectations at present. But the prereq would be that step one piece. All right. So step one, for the most part, very familiar territory for those HIE admins. Navigating to the dashboard and the HIE admin tool would add the new account if required, adding that user familiar territory. And then additionally to either new accounts or existing portal accounts, the service reports. And that is, again, that tile that'll show up on the user's dashboard, allowing them to access CRS. So a call out, 72 hours is the window of time that an initial net new registration link for portal is active and valid. So for any net new portal users, it can be helpful, if possible, to set those users up with portal accounts, new portal accounts, on a Monday or a Tuesday, perhaps, and that'll allow them throughout the week to complete their registration. If the link becomes inactive, you can reach out to CRISP Technical User Support, and we'll send you a new one. All right. So step two, diving into the CRS POC role. Their role manager access would also be available through the CRISP portal dashboard. diving into that. Just a pause to go over the user interface, and we'll be doing a live demo of this stuff as well. But visually, I think it looks very similar to what we have in current state in our legacy CRS platform. You have that familiar layout, you have organizations itemized on the left in that dark gray column. And then within each organization, as you click through your orgs, the roster of users would appear in the white space to the right. Options above your lists of your rosters are the create user button, edit user button. Those are same in terms of old state, new state. Some additional features I think that you might find helpful is the ability to select or filter for inactive only. So just calling out if there's a user you're expecting to see on your list, you don't see them, try filtering for inactive only. They might be not active. Of course, you can import in bulk or export in bulk your organizational roster and do what you will with those lists offline. But one feature called out on the far left, advanced search, is a new feature. We'll go through a use case example regarding that. I think it's very helpful, especially given the new framework and the new model that we're going to be using in Role Manager. But give you the ability to search on your users, search on their access. Really helpful feature, and we'll demo that. All right. The hierarchy or the structure of Role Manager is built on consecutive batching of roles and reports into profiles and so forth. So within the current platform, the first two bullet points encompass all that we're able to really offer you in terms of um, consolidation. So you currently very familiar uh, with one-to-one, one role, one report, or perhaps one role containing multiple reports. Example being the HSCRC regulatory or role panel-based roles containing multiple reports that are those panel-based reports. But beyond that, we don't have the ability to create a hierarchical structure or to consolidate or batch anything beyond that. So that is something we're going to be changing within the reports role manager application. Roles will be able to be, or they are able to be batched into role profiles, which as it mentions, and it makes sense. It's a collection of roles that can be assigned to a role profile. And their role profiles are also able to be grouped consecutively into organizational um, profiles, so to speak, or added to an organization, and encompasses, in theory, what a set of users who belong to that organization should have, and that begets the default profile. Um, so we'll show this more visually, but just to kind of unpack it didactically, this in effect allows a much more efficient assignment workflow for the POCs. Rather than in current state, it's really a one-to-one. One role, one report assigned to each user every time. And so now, give this a visual um, reference, we'll be able to give you the ability to assign a box of reports, so to speak, or a profile of reports. Less clicks, and it's structured in a way that makes sense based on use case. So in this visual, we have in green the organization, test org containing a role profile, public health, and that single role profile contains 3 roles. So it's all kind of nested together. And in theory, we could create this test organization and assign to it the default role profile of public health. And then you would just need to assign that default role profile, and you would know that all the roles required would be given to any user you add to that organization. This is visual representation of the edit user field where you would assign that default role profile, um, which is the current selection shown here where the radio button organization is selected. That is the organization default profile. To the left, you see role profile called out as well as role. These roles and role profiles may be assigned piecemeal in kind of more similar fashion to what is our current state. Um, but it is only the roles and the profiles that have been assigned to the organization on the back end. So for that purpose, or for that reason, recommend you assign and work through your assignments based on that default profile. That will give you, again, that box of reports and your ability to assign all or some of the roles and profiles and reports in that box. You can remove roles or profiles as needed. So um, the analogy I like to use is in the new methodology, the plate is full, and if everything is in view, you can simply give the whole plate or the whole box. But if something needs to be taken away, the trash can icon located at the right of each role will allow you to remove either a single role or an entire profile as needed. And we'll go over that in the live demonstration. Um, in deactivating, you may reinstate as needed. So if at a later time a role is required or appropriate for a user, you can simply bring that back. Rows that are in red or roles indicated in red are deactivated. Um, all right. Speaking a bit on the integration of user management as a part of migration, want to mention that for HIE admins in their work to certify users within that 90-day cadence, um, if they continue to certify, uh, all access is retained, no changes. If in the event a user is deactivated by the HIE admin portal account, CRS portal account is deactivated, that would of course result in the deactivation of the portal account and the removal of portal assets, but that will also entail for CRS removal of roles and profiles within CRS that will carry through, and that deactivation carry through as well to a deactivation within CRS. Reason for this is noting that the reports role manager application is fully configurable in its own right. We wanted to make sure that the HIE admin in their capacity to either ensure ongoing CRS portal access should be retained or sunset to ensure that in the event it is sunset or deactivated, that carries through for all access across all CRS portal applications, including CRS. Noting at the bottom, want to call out suspended status in the event that after that 90 days has elapsed, if the user is not certified once more by the admin, it goes into suspended status for a duration about 30 days or so. No changes occur in that status. So you have quite a bit of time to work with um, just to ensure access is retained for users who still require it. And again, in the event of, sustaining that, retaining active status, nothing changes. But in the event of reactivation from a deactivation or a user who is deactivated, want to call out that roles and profiles within CRS are not automatically reinstated. They will be reactivated, but their roles and profiles, they do need to be credentialed once more by the POCs. But hopefully within the new, that hierarchical workflow, the structure we have in place within Role Manager, hopefully that is pretty streamlined for the POCs and not too much of a burden. All right. Wanted to provide a little bit of an overview on the profiles that we're going to set up in Role Manager based on organization type. So we have different organization types, and based on organization type, We have different reports that make sense for those organizations and make sense for the default profile. So first example of that is the organization type hospital. So for this organization type, it's a cadre of reports that in current state, if you're a hospital user, you are utilizing now, you are accessing now. We put all those reports into the default profile for hospital organizations. So if you're a hospital user, um, most of these reports or all these reports should be fairly familiar to you. They are grouped together in the default profile for hospital organizations. So public health, of course, monitoring, reports, quality reports, MPA, methodology, all that hospital facing, all those hospital facing reports. Apologies, it's cut off at the bottom there, but panel-based reports are in there too. Another org type, MDPCP, CTOs, different organization type, different batching of reports and default profile. Same for panel-based orgs. So if some organizations that aren't participating in MDPCP, they're not hospitals, they have a different profile pertaining to their org type. And then lastly, public health reports for public health organizations. So hopefully, as we unpack the workflow a bit, this idea of default profile, organization type, the types of reports available based on org type will start to make more sense as we can as we visualize that, go through the workflow. All right. And noting some new terminology throughout this change. We've talked through most of this, but just want to call out a couple of the key terms, the verbiage goes along with this new app. All right, Q&A. So, oh, Godwin, apologies. So my
No,
colleague Godwin is on the call,
yeah, I
and
just jumped in. Sorry.
oh, well, your timing is perfect, my friend. So, yeah, so just to the group, some Q&A, boilerplate Q&As that have been posed as a part of migration. So I'll hand the mic to you, Godwin.
Yeah, thank you. And just introducing myself again. I know I was formally introduced. My name is Godwin Iroko. I'm just going to be going over briefly the Q&A piece for today's training. Again, feel free, in addition to the questions that we have here, to put any additional questions that you might have throughout the training in the chat or Q&A section. We'll answer those questions appropriately. So the first question, will my access to CRS reports remain the same after CRS migration, ensuring continuity? So the goal in current state for all CRS users is to keep or all retain historic access to reports will just essentially be mirrored or mapped into the CRS portal. So no changes on you all's end, just maybe just the interface and whatnot of the application, but all historic reports will be mapped to the new CRS portal application. All right, question number 2. Will all users with active CRS accounts require a CRIS portal account? And if so, how will they be informed about registering for one? So as far as July 1st, when users are fully migrated, users who currently have access to CRS, nothing additional is needed at that point in time. However, for any new users needing CRS access, what will happen July 1st is that they will receive an email. The email will essentially be their registration to get into CRS. As likely mentioned, we do encourage that users who receive that email register appropriately within that 72-hour window just to make sure that they get in, get registered, and retained access. All right, question 3. Does CRS have an itemized list of reports contained within the roles? In current state at this point in time, it's not embedded at this point in time. However, we do have the roles and reports set up for the org level. So in current state, nothing itemized at this point in time, but in some future states, we might have more flexibility for that. However, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at reports-support@chrishelp.org. All right, next question. What is the deactivation carry through for HI admins to role manager? So as you guys know, assuming everyone here is a POC for CRS, the whole goal is to recertify users every 90 days. However, in some cases where users are not managed and recertified within that 90-day time frame, the 91st day, they will go into a suspended status for at least 30 days. And then from there, those users will eventually be deactivated. What will happen at that point in time is you all, as the POCs, will have to add back any roles that that individual user had prior to that deactivation period. So, and takeaway to this is just user management, making sure that we're continuously uh, recertifying those users every 90 days. All right. Question number 5, are CRS POCs required to be HIA admin? Currently, not necessary for HIA admins to be CRS POCs or vice versa. However, we do encourage for some level of continuity as far as user management and just making sure. Prime example, as I mentioned previously, with reactivation and deactivation, it would be advisable to just play that role as well too. So again, not necessarily the case of playing both roles, but it's highly encouraged for the user management perspective. All right. Question number 6. What is the June 16th to 30th user management freeze for in CRS? So as you all might have or may have gotten communication out at this point about our credentialing tool freeze upcoming in the next 2 weeks. So the whole goal behind that is for our efforts for migration. So during this period of time, the POCs will not have we'll have some abilities removed at this point in time just for the purpose of our migration efforts. What that consists of is you won't be able to add any new users to your organization, any additional credentialing at that point in time, and anything regarding modification, updating, or deactivating users will be not accessible during that point in time. However, once we fully migrated, those abilities will be able to will be brought back to you all. All right, and question number 7, if you have any questions, who may you contact? For Chris reporting account, anything regarding that, feel free to reach out to support@chrishelp.org. For any questions specific to CRS specifically, feel free to reach out to us at report-support@chrishelp.org. And I'll pause for any questions. There were a few questions in the chat that I can um, maybe, I don't know if anyone would have more of a background behind it. I will ask it. If not, I can take this back to the team and we'll send a follow-up message. So the first question that came up came in the Q&A portion. My practice is part of NDPCP, but also Aladet ACO and planning to add the Medicaid Ahead program. What org type would I use? Um,
That is a good question.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, to the user who asked, thank you for that question.
Mhm.
And in a lot of ways, we're working through some of the questions pertaining to ahead. But Godwin, we can take that back to the team and get back to you to ensure the correct response.
Sure, sure. So I'll just note that for us to take back and we'll provide you with a response on that. The next question, there's one more that came in. During the conversion, will reports be assigned to users one on one? Will create the default profile and any custom profile slash roles and then assign.
So,
I can read that again. I know it was a little choppy when I read it.
oh, you're good. You're good. Sure.
Yeah. So the user asks during the conversion, will reports be assigned to users one on one? We then will create the default profile and any custom profile slash roles and then assign.
Uh, we would be if I think I follow the question. So, as part of migration, we would be giving to all users active for the organizations the current reports they have in the legacy historic CRS platforms. So in the initial stage of migration or the initial days of migration, those current and active users in being migrated should we will be assigning and they should be retaining all the reports they have currently. And so the POCs for those existing active users should not have to really do anything to ensure they have the reports they need. So we'll be not only migrating users, but the access that they have currently as part of migration. Um, and then I will add to that in the future state for any new users. Um, you would set them up as kind of outlined on the slides, and we'll go through here in real time and assign to them the reports um, available to them through the organizations that you add them to. Um, and the addendum I'll mention is that if in the event you, in seeking to assign, users access to a certain report and you don't see it included or available to you, please just reach out to us and we can walk through any changes we may need to make to the organization or support the credentialing of that required report as needed. So hopefully that covers the uh, current and future state of the within that question.
Yeah. All right. For time purpose, we can transition.
All right. Thank you, Godwin. So we'll now dive into um, reshare my screen. We'll dive into a live demonstration of the steps we've kind of outlined on our slide deck. So let me share. All right. Does everybody see my screen, my Chris Portal dashboard? Says it's good, so presume it's good. Oh, actually, may need to end. Okay, try that again. Godwin, do you see my Chris Portal dashboard?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So, hearkening back to the two-step process, I put my HIE admin hat on from my Chris Portal dashboard. I dive into the admin tool, and again, we'll go through it as uh, steps that you're very familiar with in terms of adding users, but for a net new user requiring portal, you'd go to that add user tab, select the credentials as required, submit, set up a new user. They would then register their portal account on their side, set up their two-factor authentication. But for you as the admin, your next step would then be to go to that user and assign the service reports. So here's a test user. Um, my service management button here at the top right under their at their contact card, assign services, and then similar to any other tool that you might assign to someone, you would be looking for the reports tile. And there we go. Now I won't fully submit this. I won't click next, but that's what you would do. And that would populate that service or that tile for them within their dashboard. Um, and then want to call out in seeking to assign that service, you may have users who already have the asset or the service. They already have that reports tile added. So you can click service management and scroll through the list and note if it doesn't populate there, it's probably because it's already been added. Or you can do a quick check to see if a user does or does not have the reports service. It'll be listed under the user's contact card. On the related tab, you can see all the assets granted to the user. And this particular test user, we see reports is added under the product name column. So just to mention, the admins you can check if they have it, or you can dive right into service management and look for it. And if they don't have it, it will populate there. And then if they do, it will not. All right, so that is the HIE admins process. Next would be diving into the CRS POC workflow. Now, this is our stage environment. In Portal and in Production Portal, you would see Reports Role Manager listed as the user management application for CRS. But in Stage, it's called Crisp Role Manager. I just want to call that out for you. It would be Reports Role Manager. All right, so here we have our user interface. It's very similar to what we've had in the past. Um, let me adjust my view there. Um, great. Uh, Organizations located on the left. Within each organization, your roster of users. And here we have test organization. Um, you would, to create a new user, click Create User. To edit existing users, edit. As I mentioned on the slide deck, calling out this Show Inactive Only filter. If you have a user who is not active, they'll show up here after you filter for that. You can export, import as needed, the roster by organization, or you may additionally leverage a feature I really like, the advanced search. You can search on uh, roles and role profiles that have been assigned to users and search on their active or not active status. And we'll get into an example of that, but rather than clicking on each individual user and getting a sense of what they have, you can, if needed, you can look across a group and get a sense of multiple individuals and whether they're, as a group, active or not active for certain roles, or get a sense of who has what as a group. So I really like that feature. All right, so adding a new user. We have an existing user here that I'm going to work off of, but of course, in your case, it'd be a new user. You would click Create User, but I'm going to click this user and click Edit Details. But we'll imagine that we clicked Create User. Of course, the fields would be blank, and you would populate to start the contact ID for the user's CRISP portal account. So whatever that ID for their portal access is, CRISP portal, you put that in here. And there would be a search button. You'd click search and it should, assuming they exist, their CRISP portal account exists, it would pull in their name, their credentials, or their contact credentials and do that for you automatically. You would then need to populate or complete the primary organization field for the user. But I do want to note that this primary organization field is CRS, primary organization, and pertains to the CRS organizations that would be listed on the left-hand column. Um, It would not necessarily align by name with the primary organization that the user has for their CRS portal account. So this primary org within Role Manager, strictly speaking, is the list of organizations that are set up within CRS. The reason for that is if a user is deactivated and they lose all their roles, we wanted to make sure that their profile exists somewhere, that they retain a profile somewhere. So that would be their primary organization, wherever that's set. All right, so hitting save or diving to, well, we'll hit save and then should take us to application roles. So this is where you will be doing your credentialing. So from the application roles tile within this top section, roles and role profiles section, I have the ability to assign a role profile, or the organization default profile. And again, the roles and profiles are what are included within the default role profile for the organization. So it typically makes sense to assign the default profile for the organization because that's going to give you the most flexibility just out of the gate to keep or remove roles and profiles as needed. But you may have a user who really just needs a role, and in that case, you could just assign piecemeal. But most folks would say, let's go for the organization default profile. So we'll click that. We're going to go with that default profile. We search for the organization we want to add that user to, and I'll select test org. I'll mention briefly here, you have the ability to add multiple organizations all at once and add multiple default profiles for those organizations all at once. We won't do that here, but just to mention, if you have a user, you know they belong to multiple organizations, you can list them boom, boom, boom down the line and keep selecting. We'll just select one here, but want to call that out. So I got one org selected here. Gonna next click view and add organization default profile, and that'll bring up our role configuration window. Now with that brief mention of the ability to add multiple organizations, I do want to call out in the top left here, we see test org, and it's pulling up the profile for that test org right now. If you select multiple organizations, you're going to see them listed here, itemized at the top left. So if I had test org 1 and I had selected test org 2, I'd be able to scroll down and see all their profiles and edit their profiles, all as an item within that itemized listing. And each organization might have a different profile, so you're kind of thinking through that too. So typically, I do find it's easier to kind of operate one org at a time, but just to mention, you can again streamline your workflows. You can do more than one org at once, but we're just going to go through one. Here we have within role configuration for this organization test org, kind of a dummy assortment of roles just to demonstrate the functionality. This is different than what was demonstrated on the slide deck. We have, and we will be setting up actual default profiles based on org type in real world. But for the functionality piece, this is just demonstrating an assortment of roles grouped together as a default profile. So let me collapse real quick all the roles included in this default profile. So we see public health reports, MDPCP, panel, case mix program loader, kind of goes along with the panel-based reports. So we'll batch together. If I unpack this a bit, let's dive into some of the role profile structures. So role profile name column up here. If I scroll down again, I see MDPCP practice role profile. So if I look across that whole group, I see in this section here, this is the reporting suite, basically, MDPCP reporting suite. And then down below, also here within that profile, I see a couple other reports are included with that profile, the COVID public health dashboard, Health Equity Explorer. So from the standpoint of the profile, all of these roles are nested within this role profile. If I scroll up a bit, I can see some other role profiles, panel-based roles PHI, panel-based roles non-PHI. And here's our case mix program loader. Also, that role contained within one or the other role profiles, panel-based roles PHI or panel-based roles non-PHI. So um, in this sense, you effectively have two role profiles. One is non-PHI, one is PHI. And those role profiles contain two roles, panel-based reports and the PHI version of that report, or the non-PHI version if you're in the non-PHI panel-based role profile, as well as the role case mix program loader, which that doesn't have a PHI attribution, but yeah, two roles nested within that profile. All right, let's work through deactivation. So in the case of this user, if I know they're not PHI eligible, and I want to remove a role, I can, looking at this role profile, say, okay, here's panel-based roles, PHI. I want to remove that PHI level panel-based reports role. So I'm going to click this trash can and click remove the role. All right, now you see, in addition to this top row where it says report and then panel-based reports, we have, of course, deactivated that PHI level or details panel-based report. But we also see 3 rows below also turn red. Just want to call out that some roles have related attributes that are connected. And so in deactivating the role, we've also deactivated those additional connected attributes that allow the role to function. So in this case, we deactivated the PHI panel-based role reports role, and connected to that role are the attribute is the PHI attribute of that report. Other attributes that are not populated here, but they're called out: hospital ID or panel ID, which are required for the report to run. In this case, would be the attribute panel ID, and whatever panel IDs are granted to the organization would be um, funneled or channeled through this attribute. But just from a deactivation standpoint, just calling out that when we remove this role, and I'll bring it back, remove the role, multiple rows turn red. It's just one role, but there are multiple attributes related to that role. So let me bring it back again, and I'll do the same, just testing that with the MDPCP practice. Click that, remove the role, the report MDPCP reporting suite goes red, but there are a couple other attributes that allow that report to run that are also turning red. They just relate to the rule. So I'll bring that back. I want to call out in deactivating this PHI version of the panel-based roles or role profile. We turned off the role, but as we noted earlier, there are 2 roles within the profile. So if we scroll up, just want to call out that we've turned off the role, single role for panel-based reports PHI, but within that panel-based roles PHI profile, there's another role that's still active, and that may be an issue. So the case mix program loader, although notwithstanding that that's not a PHI-based report or anything, but just want to call out that in this case, if you were really trying to remove PHI-based, panel-based reports access, you would want to remove the profile. So let me bring back the role, and I'll go back to the PHI panel-based reports role here and remove profile. And actually, in this case, hit add it and save. And we're going to get a PHI, should get a PHI attestation. Okay, in the test environment, if we still have live the MDPCP practice role, and so for that we should have gotten, and you will get in prod, the PHI attestation for the user, but in this case we did not. And okay, and I will apologize. Let me try this again. This should have all turned red. Let's try that again. Let's try it on the report. PHI, remove profile, and save. Yes, good. Okay, that was a good call out to also elevate the mention that you can deactivate or reactivate roles at any time. So we were in the user's the role configuration window. We saved that, and then now this is what the user actively has. But we can parse on whatever access they require at any time. So not beholden to assignment at the role configuration stage. But okay, so we deactivated now successfully the role profile for panel-based roles PHI. And now you see all the roles that are nested up under that PHI panel-based role profile are red. And that's what we want, just with the use case, the example of we want to remove panel-based PHI reporting access from this user. So I'm going to leave that for now, save it, just to be extra sure. And we're going to use that scenario to demonstrate the advanced search function on a user. So as we mentioned, we'll say it again, we just deactivated the panel-based roles PHI role profile for that user within test org. So if you had multiple users that you want to see, like what is their active or not active status for a role or report or a profile, you can do that through advanced search. So within advanced search, if I select the organization I have in view, so here I have test org, and I select the profile that I'm interested in, I select panel-based roles PHI, and then at the very bottom here, this filter, role or profile active, I'm going to select yes. Yeah, I'll select yes. We'll start with that. And I hit search and nobody shows up. And that's expected. In this case, we know that test org only has one user, and we just deactivated that user for the entire profile of panel-based roles PHI. So I would not expect, I would hope, no one would populate on that search. But if I flip it over to no, this role profile active equals no for the same criteria, um, not to belabor it, but someone does show up. But noting, I want to call out, this is again the active status of the selected role or profile for this user or any users for whom that criteria applies. So if you had 10 users that were all not active for that profile, you would get that number of hits, 10. This is different than the individual user's active status. So you see active yes here, don't be confused by that. This user is still active for CRS, but just not for this role or profile rather. So helpful feature. Certainly I'm sure you all make it your own in the ways that you find it helpful, but just wanted to call that out. The last thing, want to call out, hopefully affording us some time for any questions, but in migrating for hospital organization types, as is shown here, we will be, for the default profile for hospital organizations, we will be setting up those entire default profiles for hospitals, a duplicate organization, and the entire default profile set to a PHI or non-PHI attribution. The reason for this is simply to afford you as the POCs an easier time in credentialing. So we're only doing this for hospital orgs, but for the same default profile, same for each organization, the only difference being one is the PHI version of that default profile and the other is non-PHI. So just to help, with that PHI question for some users who may or may not need PHI, you can put them in the appropriate hospital. All right. With 5 minutes to spare, that represents the general overview of the application. Happy to take any questions if there are any, and I'll pause for that. And if no questions, that is also fine. We're here for you. Again, report-support@crisphealth.org if you need us. And yeah, thank you so much for attending and hope you have a great weekend. Bye.